What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the first ever Beat Joe Orrico NFBC online championship. This will be a lot of fun. We're going to be streaming here for the next couple hours. I'm joined on the FTN YouTube channel by FTN's own Dan Thompson and a special guest, Frank Stampfl from CBS Fantasy Baseball today is also here. They are going to be chirping my picks and talking us through the draft board as we make our way through this draft, which I'm very much looking forward to. I'm picking 11th. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Frankie, thank you for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to do it, man. The busiest time of year. We are here. It is now draft season. Spring training's going full swing right now. We've got everyone back in camps. World Baseball Classic was awesome. But now this is when most of the drafts are happening. And happy to be here. Happy to see what you do tonight, Joe. We'll see if we got to commend the picks or maybe rip them apart a little bit.
Roast me. This is Comedy Central roast of Joe Orrico is another word for this stream we're going to be doing tonight. So feel free to throw your roast into the chat. If you like the picks, don't like the picks, let us know. Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. The WBC was fantastic. I got this Espresso Italia RotoWear shirt going on. We all got the blue theme going on. We look like an Eiffel 65 tribute tour going on here, but this is a fantasy baseball draft.
I am repping FTN, so
Dan
go home team.
Dan is the company man here tonight. Really appreciate you hopping on, Dan. We're switching roles from last week when it was your online championship. You've had a few days to sit with it now. How do you feel about the team you drafted last week?
I like it. I like it a lot. I didn't know if I would have an easy time kind of drafting and trying to pay attention to the conversation and, chip in where I was able to. But it went very well. I liked the team, how it started out. I think my only real mistake was with some of the later starting pitching. I'm going to end up with 2 starting pitching stashes, which I'm something I would prefer not to do. Might have to make a cut decision on one of them. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Good looking team. And I'm guessing my team is going to resemble yours at least a little bit because you were picking 12th. I'm picking 11th. And I know that I liked, 25 of your 30 picks that we watched on stream. We were in lockstep for. So we're going to see how much overlap there really is. And the draft is officially underway. And Shohei Ohtani, no real surprise, goes number 1. I went back and forth with Welsh today, Frank, about Ohtani versus Judge. He's more on the Ohtani side. I'm leaning more towards your boy, though, Aaron Judge. Do you have a clear number 1 as a Yankee fan? Does it influence you at all? If you have multiple first overall picks, would you diversify? How are you approaching that 101 this year?
I probably would diversify it if I have multiple, but if I'm in just one league, it would be Aaron Judge for me. No bias involved there. It's just Luis Ariz with 50-plus home runs, right? It's like the batting average that you get with everything else that Judge does. Amazing counting stats. He's going to chip in a couple of steals. I thought it was interesting earlier in spring training. He kind of referenced guys like Juan Soto and Josh Naylor running more last season and said, that's a part of my game that I actually could improve on. So I'm not expecting that. I'd probably just expect his 10 to 12 steals. But, is there an alternate universe where he steals like 20 to 30 bags this year? I wouldn't put it past him. So it's Judge for me. I don't think you could go wrong. I think they're both amazing historic talents, but it's Judge over Ohtani for me.
I think so, too. Soto at 3 and J-Ram at 4. Wow, we have a bit of a Bobby Witt Jr. fall here. J-Ram has been falling a little bit. I've seen in some recent drafts, he's going 8, 9, 10 type of range. I guess people are a little bit worried about the injury report from the other day, maybe some age-related concerns as well, Dan. I don't know if I can get behind him quite this early, but I don't really worry as much, I think, as some other people do about Jose Ramirez. I think he's still a pretty locked-in top 6, top 7 pick for me.
No, definitely. He's been so reliable for so long, and especially at that third base position where you can get the speed from a corner infielder along with everything else that he provides. He's a very solid foundation in the first round. And I know in my draft, we had a big surprise with Jazz Chisholm Jr. going 2nd overall. Yeah. That was a mistake. The drafter admitted it and said he would just go with it. But this is a very different first half of the first round than I've seen before, with Witt falling to 5.
I got lucky in one Gladiator I did in November or December. It was the 6th overall pick. I ended up with Bobby Witt Jr. somehow.
Wow.
I think it was his max all draft season. I went, somebody took Skubal in that top 5 and J-Ram, and I forget exactly the order the guys went, but Bobby Witt Jr. fell to me at 6. It's not happening often, but I'm pretty sure the guy at number 5 was not thinking they were going to get Bobby Witt Jr. With that first pick. But I'm coming up here. I'm liking the way the board has gone so far. Ellie is not a guy I'd have in my top 10 personally, just outside of it. So him going inside of there feels pretty good. Julio, Garrett Crochet, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson, all are on the board for me here. I might go with Crochet if he doesn't get taken. I'm thinking about it. Here. I want one of the 2 outfielders or one of the 3 outfielders with Tatis as well. Gunnar Henderson goes.
Nice.
So that'll make my decision easier. Garrett Crochet, come on down. And I believe, Dan, that's the same first round pick that you made from 12 last week.
I did technically take Tatis in the first round and then made Crochet the 13th overall pick. But yeah, it was a very similar start, although there goes Tatis.
Nice.
So I did exactly what I was hoping for. I got exactly the start I wanted with Crochet and Corbin Carroll. Corbin Carroll, when he first got hurt, I was thinking, okay, I got to move him down 15, 20 spots. Who knows when he's going to be ready, what the power is going to look like. But he got back a lot quicker than I thought. Frank, do you still see him as a first-round caliber player?
I moved him back up to 15 yesterday. So in a 15-teamer, I think he's right there on that turn. 12-teamer where you got him here, it's pick 14. That's right in line with where I moved him. It's always interesting to me that I see Kyle Tucker fall in a lot of these drafts, and I know he's dealt with injuries the past couple of years. I think most of them have been fluky, and now you put him in Dodger Stadium with that lineup. It's a great ballpark for him to hit in. So I'm seeing a big bounce-back season from Kyle Tucker this year. It's good batting average. 30 homers, 20 steals, great counting stats. So I love where Kyle Tucker goes, but totally fine taking Corbin Carroll where you did as well. He actually played today. He was back in the lineup, homered off of Edward Cabrera. So nice to see him get that first spring homer out of the way there for Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, I have a bunch of Tucker, and he is always a consideration for me at the back end there. I think that was more just trying to diversify a little bit. I think with Tucker and Carroll, I could see them ending up pretty close overall value-wise. Do you have a strong feeling there between Tucker and Carroll, Dan?
Not really a strong feeling. I would be very happy taking Corbin Carroll, and I did actually get him in an OC at 20th overall, pairing him with Acuna. That was a very easy decision. But from where you were, with Tucker still on the board, I draft enough teams that I would probably try to get some shares of both. But if I'm strictly picking between the two, I might lean Tucker only because of the hammy injury to Carroll and because I really do put an emphasis on early power.
That's totally fair. I don't know how to feel about Tucker's injuries over the last couple of years. They feel kind of fluky. 2 different teams misdiagnosing injuries. I don't know how often that happens. Hopefully the Dodgers do not make it a third this year. But I think that he is relatively safe. And I think of all the guys in that Dodger lineup, there's a lot of guys who are well into their 30s now, Freeman and Betts especially. But even Ohtani's getting up there, Smith, Muncy, Teoscar. They're all kind of getting to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if they get more rest days mixed in. Whereas Tucker, I feel like if he's healthy, he's probably playing 160 games or something close to that, Frank. Don't you think is that reasonable to expect that he will get fewer off days on a regular basis than the rest of the regulars in that lineup?
I just wonder with the Dodgers being so good, right? If they have that built-in advantage in September, they kind of have that luxury of letting some of their guys sit out late in the season. But I would say from April through August, I would expect them to pretty much be an everyday player, maybe a few off days sprinkled in here, there, 3 to 5 throughout the course of the season. And then again, in September, if they have that big lead, they can afford to sit down some of their guys, get them ready for the postseason, because as we've seen the past couple of years, that is all they care about, especially with their pitchers, is, man, get me Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow back in September. Let these guys get built up and have them ready to go for the postseason. And I could see them doing something similar with some of their hitters in September. But throughout the course of the first 5 months of the season, I would just expect Tucker to be an everyday player.
So if you're thinking more for like a point or a playoff format, would that make you, in a way, less interested in Dodgers if you think when the head-to-head playoffs come around that they might not be playing every single day? Is that a consideration for you at all?
No, not personally. I mean, just because like they're still going to be so good even when they do play. It's like they could go out and score 5, 6, 7 runs a night and no one would be surprised by that. So yeah, maybe they'll get a few extra days kind of built in there in September. But when they play, I think the production is just going to be so massive.
Sorry, Dan, I cut you off there.
Well, I was just going to say for Tucker, The only real danger in that early part of the season is that if he picks up a nagging injury, the Dodgers just in general might be more likely to just say, hey, go to the IL, wait it out, get back fully healthy, and then come back strong.
I could see that. I could see that. Sorry, guys. I'm getting a little bit distracted just planning out the next couple of picks here.
Well, we
not
see
going to be recapping.
Yeah, we see team 2 here with Judge and Schwarber definitely cornering the market on power. You could have 90 to 100 homers right there. And then Neto makes sense with those 2 power bats to keep adding on to the power. A lot of people expecting Neto could reach 30 homers this year. But with 30 potential steals he brings to the table, he adds that stolen bases and kind of starts building out that 5 category foundation for team 2. That's an interesting start.
Would you guys believe me if I told you that Zach Neto's max pick in the last week is 102? He fell to 102 in an online championship.
Wow. That was probably like the night he got hurt and people didn't know what was going on. That's the only explanation there.
That had to have been it.
Yeah.
That's a gift. That is an absolute gift. I think they'll take that. Where are we at here? Still on the Neto. Mason Miller. So the closers are going to start to go off the board. I'm more along the lines of just pay for closers at the draft room than pay in fab or the waiver wire this year. Looking back on last year, and maybe I'm reading too much into one season, but finding closers or saves off the waiver wire in 2025 was pretty hard to do. Emilio Pagan early in the season was great. If you drafted Aroldis Chapman in the last couple of rounds, you did well. But by and large, if you didn't leave your draft with saves, it was going to be a bit of a tough year for you. Dan, you cover bullpens for FTN. Does it seem like a year where you should just be paying up at the draft room as opposed to trying to get a little bit too cute with it for the average player?
Yeah, I do think so. We have kind of an unusual number of teams with really no clarity. I mean, it's as many as 7 or 8 teams where we just don't know what's going to happen, or they seem pretty committed to a committee where you're not going to find that 25 to 30 save guy. So I think the prices on closers in general do reflect that. These, locked in guys who can give you the great ratios, give you the 100 strikeouts like Mason Miller. They're very much coveted, and they are going higher even than we usually see in the NFBC.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto goes mid-third. And I guess, my brain is more used to, at this point, 15 teamers, and I'm making more of the adjustment into the 12s. I have a couple more OCs I'm going to be doing. I kind of like the standalone leagues too, without the overall. I think it's an interesting format to play as well in 12s, but this is a different board than I'm used to seeing here with some of these pitchers not being pushed up quite as much. Maybe part of that's looking at the main event boards too, where we've already seen a first round Christopher Sanchez and a first round Yamamoto, but pitching is not getting pushed up quite as much as I thought it would. Brent Rooker goes here.
That's typically what we see in OCs too. Like I've noticed in OCs that pitching kind of goes a little bit later in the draft. There was a span from your pick at 11 until pick 30 where a starting pitcher did not go in this draft. And I would say that's pretty normal in this specific format in the online championship.
It kind of makes me regret Crochet a little bit, but at the same time, I think I'll take the ace and then not have to worry about that so much for the first couple rounds. I'll still take another early pitcher if I think it makes sense, but Hunter Brown goes here at 310, and I will get, I think I'm going to go Ketel Marte. I'm going to debate it for a second here, but I think taking care of second base, which there are a couple of late guys that I like, but just getting it out of the way and not having to worry with a guy who's led the position in average runs, homers, everything over the last couple of years outside of steals. So let's lock in Ketel Marte with that first pick and take care of second base. What do you guys think about that one?
Go Snakes, baby. Let's go. T-backs.
Dan,
that Carroll Marte pairing. I think it's a good addition to Corbin Carroll. We don't really know what Carroll's going to bring for home run power, but Marte has big power for a guy that you don't really expect it from. He's not a huge slugger, but he just hits the ball so hard. So as long as he can play in 140 plus games, you're probably looking at 30 or more homers with the batting average from a second baseman. That's a very well-rounded player. And that's a good pick.
The concern there, of course, is just the health, I guess. When you look over the course of his career, he has missed a bit of time. Being on the end here, I don't want to play around. Like I said earlier, don't get too cute. Juan Duran, let's lock in a closer. So first 4 picks, Crochet, Carroll, Marte, and Juan Duran. I'm liking it. I'm liking it so far. Team Snakes, as you said, I'm going to have to definitely buy a D-backs jersey. I've been wanting to buy a D-backs jersey, actually, like the old school one. Bogman has one. The World Series 2001 type of jersey. So maybe I just give myself a reason to buy an Arizona Diamondbacks jersey. Anything else standing out on the board to you guys? Any builds that you particularly like or don't like? Anything standing out?
That left half of the board, 1 through 6, in those first 18 combined picks, we have 2 yellow stickers, 2 pitchers.
Yeah.
So at some point, that left half of the board is going to go very yellow. You would think.
Yeah, I was just looking at Team 12 too, and they went 4 hitters to start as well. 3 of those being outfielders. This is a 5 outfielder format, but again, like there are some outfielders you can find in the middle round. So it'll be interesting to see how they put together their pitching staff with Julio, Tatis, James Wood, Manny Machado. It's a great base of offensive stats. Don't get me wrong, but obviously you do have to fill up those pitcher spots eventually. So it'll be interesting to see how Team 12 builds that out.
Yeah, Marcus in the chat is saying, why would 211 not wait on the turn to take Schwarber? No way, pick one would take Schwarber and Ohtani. But I get that. But I think if you really wanted to take Neto in the next round and you couldn't justify it to yourself in the second or something, I think people play these mental games sometimes. I don't want him in the second, but I'll take him in the third. I don't know if you guys ever end up doing that. You can end up overthinking things sometimes. But I guess it's a decent point. Like you could have gone Turner and then Schwarber, or PCA and then Schwarber, but Team 2 charting their own path, I think, at this point, just getting your guys, getting who you want, and not worrying so much about who everybody else is going to take. But it's a decent point. It is a decent point there. I guess he could have gone for Trey Turner. You guys have a strong feel on that, like Turner, Neto, Francisco Lindor grouping? They're usually going off the board within a few picks of each other. Do you feel strongly about any of those names?
I feel like Turner is just kind of undervalued every year, and he feels rock solid. Good batting average, steals, power that won't kill you. He'll probably be in that 15 home run range. He's going to be at the top of a really good Phillies lineup. So I really haven't got much of Neto this year. I'm not opposed to it. I think he's probably going a little bit like a touch too high for where I would draft him, but I would probably rank them Turner, Lindor, Neto as of now. Dan, what do you think?
I very much like to concentrate on power and batting average early. So for that reason, I would lean towards Trey Turner, especially because if you're drafting a hitter in the first round, unless it's Ellie De La Cruz, you're pretty much looking at 30 or more homers. You're going to have the power. So I don't mind taking Turner to help with the batting average and add that speed component to the first round selection.
Thinking about which way to go here. And I think I want to prioritize catchers to a certain extent. I mentioned it on the stream last week. I want at least one catcher that I feel really good about, at least one C1, if you want to put it that way. And then maybe I can dive a little bit later. But I see so many draft boards of guys who have a lot of success in high-stakes formats, and a lot of them have 2 gray squares on their board within the first 10 rounds. And I'm kind of moving more towards that way of thinking, that a couple of catchers in the 2-catcher format, taking them early, as opposed to going for a Bo Naylor or a Jeffers or a Dingler or somebody like that, where you're not getting as many plate appearances and not as many good plate appearances. It does end up hurting you more because the players you can find in the outfield or in the corners at that point of the draft are going to be still a lot better than those kind of backup level catchers. What do you think, Frank? Are you an early catcher guy? I'm definitely more that way this year than I have been in previous years.
The way I've typically always done it in 2-catcher leagues is try to get one of those top 7 or 8. And this year that's probably one in the first 7 or 8 rounds. And that kind of ends with like a Drake Baldwin or a Salvador Perez, someone like that. But any of those top 8 to 10 catchers, I like to get one of those. And then I like to jump back in that, 13 to 18 range, especially this year at catcher. It feels like there are legitimately 18 really good catchers that you could all rank as like top 12 options. So, some of the Carter Jensens or Francisco Alvarez or would have been Kyle Teal before he got hurt, but a lot of those young catchers that have some upside in those middle rounds, like to target those guys as my catcher too. But I like to get usually at least one really good C1 up at the top.
Yeah, I'm aligned.
I have so much Kyle Teal. Sorry, that's all I'm going to say.
I'm aligned with Frank's philosophy on the catchers. I like to try to get one of those top options in these 2-catcher leagues. Catcher is deep this year, but when 12 teams or 15 teams need 2 of them, that depth does dry up at a certain point, and you don't want to be stuck with guys that you're just not happy to draft at all. So I think knowing where you want to target some catchers and getting them, even if they are with some early picks, it does help that offense just really look a lot stronger when you're done with the draft. One of my favorite offenses I built this year was a team with William Contreras and Salvador Perez together.
William Contreras, I think, is going to finish as the number one catcher. I don't have the stones to rank him as the number one catcher, but I think that's where he'll probably end up finishing. I just think Cal will regress. A healthy Contreras, who was the number one catcher in 2024, he played hurt the whole year last year and was still, I think, the 4th ranked catcher. So is that a crazy take to think that William Contreras is going to be the number one catcher, Frank?
No, I don't think it's crazy by any means. I think we're all expecting some level of regression for Cal Raleigh. What will that be? You know, will he come back down to 35 home runs? Is it somewhere in the middle? I'd probably expect 40 to 45 home runs for Cal Raleigh this year. And if William Contreras is healthy, he gets all those extra plate appearances from getting, half days off and being their designated hitter right in the middle of a really good lineup, batting average, 20-ish homers, 6 to 8 steals, and just really good counting stats. You could see how he can kind of accumulate his way to being the number one catcher once again this season.
Guys, just a reminder, we'll put up the banner at the bottom of the screen. If you're looking to sign up for FTN, you've been waiting for some kind of promo code or some discount, 10% off if you use the code Joe, just my first name. Really creative, but if you use that in the section of fantasy or FTNfantasy.com and you go to the subscription section, you will get 10% off if you use promo code Joe. So just a reminder there. We'll remind you guys a couple times throughout the stream as we are making a really good pace here. The draft's only been on for 17 minutes or so, and we're already in the middle of the 5th round. I'm pretty annoyed that William Contreras just went there because he was going to be the guy that I was going to take with my next pick.
Joe, rookie mistake. You can't talk up the guys you want to draft, dude.
I know. I try and be an open book to some extent. Dan was a lot smarter on his stream. We had no idea who he was going to take, and then he was on the turn, and then he'd pop 2 beauty names most of the time. For me, I'm just, if you want to take them, you can take them. For me, I don't know. I don't know if people are even going to listen to me. I know it's the Beat Joe League, so presumably people are trying to take my guys from me. But if you want to take my guys, I'll zig when you guys zag. That's fine. But whoever took William Contreras, I'm on to you.
Now Ben Rice goes, so some of those catchers starting to go.
Catcher's starting to go. Shea Langoliers is still on the board. And I really like Shea Langoliers, but he's a guy I haven't drafted this year for whatever reason. There's nothing against him at all. It might be the play. We'll see what happens with the next couple picks. Michael Garcia goes at 56 overall. I'm talking myself more into Garcia as well. And there goes Langoliers, and there's my big mouth getting me in trouble again. Who actually kind of fits my team, although I think I can get him a little bit later because he's been falling. You know what? I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't tempt the gods.
That's a dangerous game. That's a dangerous game to play.
I shouldn't tempt the gods again. I'll see if I can wait on him a little bit. I have a lot of Mookie. I don't know if Mookie really fits this team right now. I will go. Oh man.
Oh, we're all waiting.
Yeah, I'm debating 2 names here. And I don't want to say them because I'm kind of hoping the other one comes back to me at 62.
Well, don't say it. You don't have
to.
I
won't.
You have to figure the team on the end is probably going to take at least 1 pitcher. It could be 2. So
yeah,
I don't know if that influences your decision at all.
All right, I'm going to do it. We said on the last stream that he fell way too far and he shouldn't be going as deep as he is. I know the StatCast isn't great, yada, yada. 20 homers and 30 steals, unless something drastically changes. He's in the middle of his prime years still. He went at like 70-something in the previous draft that we did on stream, Dan, but I think he fits the team, and I think it's a reasonable price to pay for him.
Yeah, I mean, this was the round where I was able to get Michael Garcia. So you're taking Abrams, different position, obviously changes kind of where you might be targeting players in later rounds, but similar statistically. If we expect Garcia to add to his power outbreak from last year, maybe he gets close to 20. Maybe he returns to that 30 steal level. CJ Abrams is already there. So kind of a similar player to to the way I started my build.
And Joe, don't listen to me because I told you Team 12 would take at least one pitcher, and they did not do that. 6 hitters to open the draft there at Team 12.
I think I'm going to take a player that I have yet to take in draft season so far, and that's Hunter Goodman. But he's going to come on down and join Team Orrico. I worry a little bit about the whole aftermath of buying into a player in Coors, because we have seen a couple of instances over the last few years of a good Coors season. People buy in, and then maybe it's just Nolan Jones is still in the back of my head all these years later. But any concern for either you guys about buying into Hunter Goodman off of one really good year, but still just only the 1 year?
I don't mind it. When I dove in this offseason, I know the plate discipline is bad, but he hits the ball hard. He has minor league numbers to back it up. His power numbers at AAA were incredible. So I think maybe the batting average could tick down a little bit, but again, he kind of has Coors Field to help mitigate that. And I absolutely buy the power. I think he'll get some opportunities at DH, so the plate appearances will be there. I didn't really see anything that worried me too much outside of the plate discipline, so I am totally fine with this draft cost, him going in the 6th round.
Dan, what do you think?
There aren't a lot of catchers who can legitimately reach 30 home runs, and Goodman has already done it. He's certainly one of the few we could expect to do it again. So after taking CJ Abrams, where you're not getting that 30, 35 homer upside, I think taking Goodman and getting it from the catcher position, that was a good choice.
Marcus, aren't the other sleeper in the bus guys in this? No, that is Sunday. That's the Mason League. That is the Justin Mason League, where it'll be all 3 of us, one after the other, and then Lucas Beery on the end of it. I think it's like 4 consecutive picks. So that'll be a fun one. I think Justin is going to stream it, but I couldn't say for sure. But yeah, that's another OC that will be happening there. It's just like over the next week, I have 5 drafts. I think I really tried to backload them this year. I don't know if you guys did something similar, but just so many early injuries. I know there are good deals you get in November and December, but I don't want to have a team with 7 guys that are hurt by the time I get to spring training. So the big money leagues are this next upcoming week. I don't know if you guys are in the same boat.
I am. I have my main event coming up in 3 days. I have my OC CLQ following that, and another OC. So I do love doing drafts in that last week before the season starts. I always do try to kind of fill up that week and just have fun with it.
I think for your paid leagues in particular, too, you probably should be waiting until we have as much information as humanly possible. We're starting to learn about players who are getting sent down, who's going to be in opening day rotations and things like that, and catching up on injuries. Still, we have a lot of injuries that are still kind of trickling in. So I think waiting until you have as much information as humanly possible for your biggest, most important leagues makes the most sense.
That's kind of where I'm at here. I think I'm going to be with Team 12 because he has no starters. I have the 1 starter, but I feel like his next few rounds are probably going to have to be pitchers. And I'm also thinking of going more pitcher in the next couple rounds anyway. Now that I have a good offensive base, I've got the power and speed mixed, I think, pretty well to this point. My projections that I'm have down for my team so far, 99 homers and 73 steals. So we'll see. But we'll take
batting average that. I want to ask about that batting average, Joe.
Right now projected 260.
Okay.
260. I don't know if it'll last, but I mean Goodman's projected. I got a blend of multiple projections here, but 257 for Goodman, 273 for Cattell, 252 for Abrams, and 260 for Corbin Carroll.
That sounds about right across the board.
Yeah, and 260 was the 90th percentile in the online championship last year. So it's a lofty target, to get that 90th percentile range. Most people tend to use the 80th percentile as a draft target. So that's several points lower. So I think you're in fine shape right now.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee if there's any books taking action on this that my team will not be 90th percentile in batting average at the end of this draft. But we'll see. Who knows? That's why Yandy Diaz exists in this fantasy landscape. And, the Alec Bohms of the world and Bo Bichette's. You can get later batting average. It does exist. But it does get a little bit harder as the draft does go on here. I am. Am I gonna get him? I don't know. What are you guys doing with Seiya Suzuki too? I love Seiya Suzuki, but I'm a little bit worried with this whole knee problem going on. I don't think a PCL strain is the end of the world, but is it enough to move you off of him at all, Frank? If he was a target,
I like Seiya Suzuki just annually. I like his profile. I like the power that he provides. Don't love that the steals came down last year and now he's dealing with a sprained PCL. So perhaps we should not be expecting any steals from him this season, but hitting in the middle of a good lineup, batting average that doesn't kill you, good power, good, runs and RBI total there from Seiya Suzuki. What do we do with him now? I dropped him outside of my top 100. I know his ADP was like in the 80 to 85 range. So I moved him just outside my top 100. It's hedging a little bit. I think there's a chance he opens up on the IL, but if he does, I don't think it's going to be that long. I think it's probably like 10, 15 days. And it's something that we could look back at the end of the season and not even remember that he was hurt in spring training. So I've dropped him down about like 20 picks in the overall, but not overly concerned about it.
Wow, it looks like Daniel Palencia is getting that WBC bump here. His ADP is 92 over the last couple of weeks in online championships. He goes off the board at pick 76. Early in draft season, it felt like Palencia. I almost thought I was missing something in my first couple of drafts of the year because nobody was interested in him. He was like 170s, 180s. I don't really know why people were down to begin the year. I forget if there was an injury or something complicating matters at the beginning of draft season, but there is no discount anymore, Dan. Daniel Palencia, as the closer guy, does that price seem a little bit too rich for you?
I mean, if you're looking at what he accomplished in the WBC, high pressure games, facing pretty strong groups of hitters for the most part, he definitely looked like a shutdown closer. And the Cubs, they really only brought in Phil Maton, who was a Hunter Harvey, as legitimate competition for him. So I think he is secure in the role. And when you see the skills flash in a large international competition like that, it can get you excited for him, what he can do this year. Now, we do have to show a little bit of concern for, just the velo combined with 2 seasons in a row where he's had some shoulder issues at the end of the year. So I don't know that I would want to push him up quite into this range, but I can definitely see why someone went that road.
Oh, what a brutal round. Just maybe I need to shut up because I said I'm going to target pitching next round. What do we got? 15 pitchers consecutively going off the board. So I need to zip up because someone's listening here. I think most of the pitching targets in that round gone off the board for me. I was looking at Cease. I was looking at Yuri. I was looking at Luzardo. Framber Valdez, I was briefly thinking about for the 2 seconds that I even had the chance to consider it. So I think I'm going to have to pivot here and not go pitching. And I think because I have a pretty good base of speed and because I mentioned the catcher thing earlier, wanted to get it taken care of, I'm going to go for Drake Baldwin. I am going to get both catchers taken care of by the 7th round. Not something that I typically do, but as I said, I'm getting more into that rhythm this year of 2 catchers early going. So Goodman and Baldwin, is that a pairing that either of you guys have landed on this year at any point?
No, I don't think I've drafted either of those on like the 10 or 15 teams that I've done. And I'm not opposed to it. It's just the way that drafts have worked out. Baldwin's another one. When you dive in, there was nothing not to like. Everything that he did last season was super impressive in his rookie year. Ground ball rate, I guess, a little bit high. The one thing that you could nitpick, but it's low strikeouts, hits the ball hard, had good numbers in the minors as well. And now that Jurickson Profar has been suspended for the year, I mean, he could get days at DH even once Sean Murphy is back. So I know entering the offseason, we were kind of, is he going to get, that huge plate appearance total that some of these other catchers are going to get? And now I am expecting that with Drake Baldwin. So really, really love that pick and kind of where he's going right now in drafts.
Dan, what do you think? I'm on the clock here. What do you think about Baldwin?
I like the pick. I just don't know why I haven't liked him enough to draft him yet. Because like Frank was saying, the skill set is there. And he should have the playing time secure as well with a lot of DH reps, even when he's not catching. I haven't clicked on him yet. I think because I really do emphasize the power, and I've just leaned more towards Salvador Perez, usually going a little after Baldwin. That's just where my drafts have landed.
Took George Springer. I took George Springer with my 2nd pick there.
You sound so happy about it, Joe.
I will be called a homer. No, I
you sound so like, I took George Springer.
Here's the thing. I love George. I love his energy. I love his skill set. I love the way he bounced back last year. I wanted to take a pitcher there. And I was like hovering over Ryan Helsley. I was thinking I was going to go that route. I wanted to take a starter, but if I'm taking a starter right now, it's Pivetta, who it's a bad pitcher type to buy. The guy off of the breakout year with the increased price. I don't know. Maybe I've done too many shows with Spore, but that worries me a lot. Chase Burns worries me a lot. Strider, like it's not a great tier. Snell and this, like it worries me taking a pitcher right here. So I only have one starting pitcher to this point through the first 8 rounds, which is not something that I typically like to do, but just taking the values where I see them. George was a first-round player. He's going in the 7th or 8th round. I don't think he's going to be a first-round player again, but can he be a 5th-round value, a 4th-round value after the 15% barrel rate, stealing, giving you the power metrics, hitting for average? Where do you guys come out on Springer? I know he's a bit of a polarizing player this year.
Yeah, he was a tough one entering the offseason, had no idea where the ADP was going to land on him. I think this is fine, and I think there is room for profit on George Springer. He's another one. When I dove in our outfield preview and really looked under the hood, I mean, the changes that he made. Now, can he maintain those? That is the next question, but what he did last year in terms of bat speed, how hard he hit the ball, lifting the ball, and that is a big credit not only to him, but to the Blue Jays coaching staff. And I'm forgetting his name, but the hitting coach that they brought in last year just did a bang-up job up and down their roster with the Blue Jays. So love everything I saw. I think, yes, we should expect him to regress from what he did last year, but what does that look like? He could hit 260 with 25 home runs and like 12 to 15 steals. Even if he does that, I think that's a fine value where he's going right now.
Yeah, that's exactly the stat line I was about to bring up. You know, if Springer goes 26-13 and hits you about 265, which historically has been kind of his range, that 260 range in a lot of seasons, you'd be perfectly happy with that. He's going to score a lot of runs, you know, batting first in that Toronto lineup with guys like Vlad Guerrero driving him in. Not going to get the elite RBI totals, but you do have a lot of RBI from Marte, you know, Goodman and Baldwin providing it from the catcher position. So Springer is totally fine there. And you were talking about all these pitchers that, you know, by ADP are kind of in the group that's available and how you see little flaws in them. You don't want to take them. That's a position where you shouldn't force a player that you don't like onto your roster just because it looks like you don't have enough of that position yet, or, you know, ADP says this is where those guys get taken. So I do think it was a wise move for you because you're an experienced drafter. You're an experienced player. You can find the pitchers you like later and load up on them, and, you know, definitely get some targets that will have good productive seasons that might match or exceed some of the pitchers that we've already seen taken in rounds like 6 and 7.
That is the hope. I worry sometimes about getting in my own head in the draft room and, you know, falling back on, well, this isn't what I typically do, so it's wrong. I usually have 2 pitchers by now. I only have 1, so therefore it's bad. Do you ever do that, Frank, where you maybe get caught up in this is what I should be doing, this is what I normally do, and I've gone a different route in this draft? Does that ever enter into your mind that you need to always follow your game plan, or do you ever mix and match, pull audibles on the fly?
No, that happens all the time. And I think you just got to be able to shake it off and keep going. And like Dan said, kind of remind yourself like, hey, man, we've been studying this all off season. You have your mid-round pitchers that you're going to hammer and guys that you really like. And again, you already have that base with, you know, Crochet as your SP1. Obviously, you would like to have like an SP2 or 3 by now. But again, having him at the top, it kind of affords you that luxury to wait on an SP2 if you wanted to, which you did here. So just trusting the process and knowing that you have guys that you know that you'll be able to get in the middle rounds, and just shake it off, because that happens to me sometime, especially in auctions, right? Like when you get punched in the mouth in an auction, you had a target and you're like, oh man, what do I do now? You really just got to be able to like shake it off and kind of bounce back and get back in the game there.
Yeah. And maybe I'm looking at your build and feeling a little more comfortable with it because in previous seasons, this is something I would put together. I have traditionally been a wait on pitching guy. So a lot of my drafts in previous seasons have looked just like yours. I keep finding hitters I want. I keep finding hitters I want to take. And I always concentrate to find pitching targets I like in the middle rounds, in the later rounds, so that when I need to make up that ground in pitching, I'm taking players I still want to have on my team. So if you personally are feeling a little uncomfortable with it, you know, it's perfectly understandable. It is unbalanced. But, you know, one thing I wrote about in my category percentile targets article is that to reach your goals, you don't have to be balanced at every point throughout the draft. You want to be balanced at the end. So this is the type of situation where you just lean on your experience, lean on your knowledge, and you'll be able to get there in the end.
I appreciate the backing kind words there, because it's good to get some re-encouragement at some points in the draft. If you guys were like, I don't know, man, this is looking pretty rough, then I'd probably be getting it in my head a little bit more than I am right now. But I'm feeling pretty good about it. As somebody pointed out in the chat, Team 12, who I'm right beside, not a single pitcher to this point, 8 consecutive hitters, including taking 2 third basemen off the board and shallowing that pool out. I personally, like, this is what I'm talking about, and what you mentioned, Dan. You don't need to be balanced at all points throughout the draft, but if the next 6 picks for this team are pitchers and they work out like that, that is a viable strategy. Marcus in the chat saying Team 1 has a lot of risk and an average age of 35. Let's take a look here, because I've been locked in on my draft. I could see what you mean with the aging hitters here a little bit, plus Sale and DeGrom. Yeah, that is the AARP team in this draft. What do you guys think about drafting older players, younger players? Like, do you tend to mix it up a little bit? Does it really matter? Does it factor into your plans at all, the age of players, or is it just you take the best guy or the guy that fits your team?
It's mostly the best guy. I think in the deeper the league, I would probably skew boring and kind of veteran types. And in a 12-teamer like this, maybe you take a little bit more shots on upside just because the waiver wire will be better than, the usual 15-team leagues that we talk about or that we play in. So in a league like this, I might skew a little bit more on upside. But again, more likely to take that upside later on in the draft, right? Like if you just want to take boring guys for the first 10 rounds, I have absolutely no problem with that. And then eventually, you'll have opportunities to take upside shots later on. So not really opposed to just being boring early on in the draft.
Yeah, and upside doesn't only come from young players. We saw it last year with George Springer, having this monster season, number 3 overall outfielder at age 35. So age, of course, you have to consider it. You start getting towards 34, 35 years old later. Most players are in a decline phase, but you have a lot of those, in the investing world, those dead cat bounces where, an older player just puts it all together for that one last hurrah.
George Springer, we just saw it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, he's the perfect example of that. So old and boring can still bring upside.
I'm going to take a chance here. Yep. Let's do it. I'm not really into this player, and I've talked about fading him at several points throughout the offseason, but Paul and Justin have kind of talked me back in a little bit because he's healthy now. The team context is good. So come on down, Tyler Glasnow. We are taking you as my SP2, which does not give me the warm and fuzzy feeling necessarily, but if I even get 120 really good innings out of Glasnow, I'll take it. And the fact that he's healthy now and nobody expects him to be healthy all year, half the time, those are the guys that end up throwing 160 innings when you least expected it. So I paired him with Pete Fairbanks. I get the second closer taken care of. I get my second starting pitcher. What do you guys think of that pairing there, Frank?
I like grabbing another closer there. And the one thing I was going to say is that with Team 12, now that you are battling him for the rest of the draft to get starting pitchers. So you know that you're going to be hammering starting pitchers. We know Team 12 is going to be hammering starting pitchers as well. I am not a Tyler Glasnow guy. I am completely out. I don't want to deter you from making that pick or talk down on your pick or anything, but especially in a league with like no IL spots, it's just, I've been burned by Glasnow so many times. I think he'll be pretty good for his like 100 to 120 innings that he provides you this year. When will those injuries come? Will there be an extended time that he misses throughout the season where you just wind up drafting him anyway in a format like this? And last year, we saw the skills decline a little bit too, where the walks went up, the swinging strike rate went down. So, I mean, to me, it's just like there's a lot of risk with Tyler Glasnow, and I've been burned so many times. I know we tell people, like, don't draft like that. Don't let it affect you year over year. But with someone like Glasnow, it just feels like such a foregone conclusion that he's going to miss time at some point. So it's not for me, but I get why you would want to take a shot on a little bit of upside there with him.
Dan, am I as crazy as Frank thinks I am?
Not crazy, no. Tyler Glasnow, when healthy, is definitely an upper tier pitcher on a start-by-start basis. The only question is, how many starts are you going to get out of him? Now, it's an easier pick to make, I think, in your position, because this is a 12-team league, and you're going to have, choices off the waiver wire every week. Replacement value will be strong. But Glass now, he carries a lot of risk, certainly. So you might want to be look at back him up with a little more floor from pitching, or just lean into it and go all upside, and just really plan to work the wire and stream. You can still go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, I need like a guy that I can count on for a boatload of innings. There's one in particular that I want. I don't think he's getting back to me at 131, but there's always a chance, I guess. I'm not going to hold my breath. Chase Burns is an interesting pick. Him and Mizrowski go off the board back to back. There was that story earlier in the week that everybody immediately sunk their teeth into, that Chase Burns is not going to start the year in the big leagues. And then it seems like he is, but there's going to be a bit of slow playing and a 6-man rotation. I worry about the injury last year too, Frank. Like, he didn't end the year particularly healthy. This feels like a really expensive price to be paying for a guy without a certain outcome here. And nobody has a certain outcome, of course, but with Burns, it's like, it could be 25 innings. It could be 160 really good innings. Like, there's just a really wide range of outcomes for such a cornerstone type of pick.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it right now with Chase Burns. I dropped him down outside of my top 40 starting pitchers. He's just outside. I think I have him at SP 41. So I would have let him go a little bit further here personally. And for the reasons you mentioned, it's just the risks that come with him. And it's not just the injury risk. I mean, there is, some performance risk in terms of his control. Some guys around him, like if Rhett Lauder is performing well, Brandon Williamson has had a nice spring, that they could maybe afford to slow play Chase Burns and put him down in the minors while he figures things out. So again, like you said, big range of outcomes. I get the upside, low floor. As that specific team's SP3, you have Yamamoto, McLean, Burns. Probably would want like a safer top 2, but again, you could kind of insulate that after now with like your SP4 and SP5 once you draft Chase Burns.
This is another yellow brick road, and the guy that I was hoping would fall back, Kevin Gausman, the guy who makes every year, it seems, 32 starts. He goes off the board at pick 118, followed by Michael Busch. So there goes that plan. There's still some pitching targets that I like, but there's something really safe about Gausman. Of course, I'm not going to beat the homer allegations tonight with the Springer pick and with the Gausman love, but you got to love a guy who makes every single start every year. And the Blue Jays tend to go for that type of player. And now with all the pitching injuries, it feels kind of ironic with the Barrios and Bieber and Savage getting slow played. But typically the guys they go for are the 32 type of start guys. And Gausman, I think, would have fit that team pretty well. Maybe next time, because he does not come to me here. But yeah, serious pitching run. All but one pick in the 10th round was a pitcher, and that was Michael Busch, who went to team 3. But another big pitching round. There's a lot of gold on the board here from round 4 through round 10. I'm not going to do the math myself, but it looks like at least half of the picks there in that range were pitchers. If maybe it's just the high stakes formats versus the more casual leagues. I hate how high we have to take pitching in general. And I get it, as you get closer to the season, guys are healthier. They've made it through the spring training healthy. They didn't get hurt in their off-season training. So you feel a little more confident in them. But I just hate first and second round pitchers. I say as I took a pitcher in the first round, but that's what you have to do to keep up with the market. And I just wish we could get him in the 3rd and 4th round. I wish we could just all agree no one's taking a pitcher until the 3rd or 4th round. Make it a lot easier. But that's the way that fantasy goes. And is it changing year after year? You guys think the pitching market, does it get pushed up more every year? It feels like to me it kind of does. Like there was a main event draft with 5 first-round pitchers already. It feels like it's a little extreme.
It's a little bit of that self-fulfilling prophecy. Just in general, over the past 5 to 10 years, the NFBC specifically has seen pitching move earlier and earlier. And then every year we approach these drafts knowing that, okay, pitching is going to go early, so I have to get it early. And that just keeps advancing pitching higher and higher up the board each season. Most people individually would probably say, I don't want to do this. I don't like doing this. But it's just this widespread knowledge. We have to take pitching early. It's NFBC. And it just keeps happening and getting more and more and more and more advanced towards the first, second round for a lot of starters, and sometimes even closers now. So maybe at some point we start to see just kind of an industry-wide shift in how we approach early pitching. But for now, that trend is just keep moving upward.
I don't think that trend's going to change unless we get a year where all 3 first-round pitchers all get Tommy John or something. And then everybody might be like, whoa, I can, this is too risky for me. But other than something like that, Frank, it feels like pitching is just going to continue to be expensive in March drafts. And maybe that's the appeal of drafting in November. You want a bunch of aces, you can get them in the 4th and 5th round if you're drafting in November. But in March, those prices are going up at least a round.
Yeah, I do think it's specific to main event drafts where we see, those guys start to like creep into the 1st and 2nd round. Because again, when we looked at this draft, like it's pretty spot on in terms of ADP. Like the 3 starting pitchers went in the first 11 picks. But again, we didn't have another pitcher go until pick 30 in the draft in the middle of the 3rd round. So we did kind of have that low all the 2nd round, the first half of the 3rd round. But it's really these middle rounds where things really get pushed up and we see people be more aggressive, and a lot of pitching from rounds 3 through 11, as you can see here on the board. I also think it's a lot of, at this point in the season, draft season, we've had time to see these guys a lot too. So in spring training, whether or not we want to say that we are affected by that or it affects our bias, I think it very clearly does. And you have to move with the market, right? If there are guys that you liked that were, round 10 or 12 pitchers a month ago, they might be round 8 or 9 pitchers now. And if you still like those guys, you kind of have to move with the market to get them on your team. So that's kind of the unfortunate part of drafting this late and getting to see all these pitchers in spring training and the WBC and all that fun stuff.
Lodolo, Rasmussen, and Papio, all 3 of the pitchers in this round were all at the top of my queue. Just brutal. Sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of forgot where I was going to go with this. But we did see an interesting run of closers that you kicked off, Joe, in the early 10th round there with Fairbanks, Emilio Pagan, Raisel Iglesias, and then Ryan Walker all going one after another. I think Fairbanks, where you took him, is appropriately priced. He might be a little limited on the saves upside, only because Clayton McCullough has recently said he would be open to using Fairbanks before the 9th inning. Pagan, pretty much in that same boat, maybe a little more loyalty from Terry Francona at this point, but he did have a ridiculously low BABIP last year. He's a fly ball pitcher in a home run park. But seeing Iglesias slip well past pick 100 is something we really haven't seen a lot of in draft season so far. And then Ryan Walker moving up into that range from where he's typically been, more like a 12, 13, 14th round pick in the 12 teamers. I thought that was interesting just to see all 4 of them go back to back to back to back.
I think Walker, people are starting to come to the realization that there's just nobody else. He is the guy, even though he struggled last year, there's nobody to replace him with. And it might be ugly at points, but that's probably 25 saves that people just have been getting. I don't want to say for free, but it feels like for free for a lot of draft season. Frank, are you a Walker guy? Have you landed on him at all this year?
I have not, and he's another name that I was burned in a few leagues by him last year. But to your point, he just kind of feels like the incumbent closer just because they really don't have other options. I had an NL-only team this year where I took like Jose Buto in the reserve rounds, just like taking a shot at somebody in the Giants bullpen outside of Ryan Walker. But in my standard 12 or 15 team leagues, I have not landed on Walker. Haven't really drafted anybody else from that Giants bullpen. But he is probably just the guy to start the season because I don't really see anybody else. I've been saying this all off season. Kind of wish that Trevor McGill got traded to either the Giants or the D-backs. It just felt so perfect because A, he would be the closer for that team. B, Abner Uribe would just step up as the closer of the Brewers. So I was kind of wish casting that, but it hasn't happened yet, and probably won't happen until we get to like the deadline, if it even does. Like, why would it? The Brewers are good. They're probably not going to trade him.
Yeah, that would have been a much cleaner situation for me to deal with as a bullpen guy with so many different media I address saves and closers on. But alas, it did not happen. And at this point, I'm still not really decided on whether McGill or Uribe is the better pick, although I am leaning towards McGill, at least starting with the job. Now, Joe, those two most recent picks you made, you got your high volume veteran, Sonny Gray. Was Gray kind of a target in this range, or was it just someone you felt you kind of needed to have on the team at this point?
I think he really fit the build. Honestly, Sandy, that whole round was brutal. Like, I wanted Pepio, I wanted Rasmussen, I wanted Gosman the round prior, but I figured that was a bit of a pipe dream. But getting Sandy, like Sandy threw 175 innings his first year back from Tommy John. I think he can go for 200. That's exactly the type of guy that I needed with this build. But Sonny Gray, the strikeout minus walk rates, a lot of the supporting metrics are really good the last couple of years. I worry a little bit in Boston at his age, but he has shown the ability to pitch in a lot of different parks throughout his career with success, including Great American Ballpark. So I'll take a chance on him there needing a pitcher. And then Jacob Marcy, who is one of quote unquote my guys. And I figure if there's any time to take one of my guys, it's in the Joe Orrico draft. So I'll take Marcy there. Frankie, I know you got to bounce in a minute. Really appreciate you coming on, man. I thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's a really busy time of year and everything, but really appreciate it. Anything you want to let the people know about? Any upcoming streams or podcasts, articles, anything that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, you can follow me on X at roto_Frank. You can listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast over on CBS Sports. And, we're live streaming on YouTube. We've got all the podcast platforms where you listen to your podcast. You can find it there as well. We're actually going to be live a little bit later tonight, like 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's the only reason why I'm hopping off here. We're doing a live mock draft ourselves. We actually have Sam Wershing hopping on, Joe, and that's the exact reason why I'm wearing the Mariners jersey tonight, because Sam is the biggest Mariners fan that I know. So we've got a live mock tonight, but we're pretty much live Sunday through Thursday until the end of the baseball season at this point. So you could find me over there, watch on YouTube, or listen anywhere you get your podcasts.
Oh, man, I'm going to have to listen to that this evening because Sam is one of the best people. He's one of my favorite people in the entire world. Dan, we're going to have to get you out to Arizona one of these years for first pitch, and you get to meet Sam, who is an absolute hoot. But Frankie, tell him I say hi. You guys look like you had a blast at Tout Wars, which is also something I'm probably going to have to be attending next year. I do not want to miss out on that. But really great to have you on, man. We'll talk soon, but I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Good luck the rest of the way. Nice to meet you, Dan.
You too, Frank. Thanks for joining us.
See you, buddy. That was Frank Stampfl from CBS Sports. One of the best guys around. Really, really fun to do a draft with. Really fun to hang out with in person. I haven't been to New York for Tout Wars, but something I'll probably do eventually. But Arizona every year is a blast. And doing the show with Sam Wershing is a hoot. So that one will be a lot of fun to check out later on. I am just kind of planning out the next few rounds. Andy Paz was somebody I was kind of hoping would stick around for me, but Connor Griffin stands out like a sore thumb, at least in terms of the position here. He's the first shortstop to go off the board in quite a while. The previous one was Corey Seager at the end of the 8th round. I'm of the mind at this point, Dan, that if you want to take a shot on one of the young upside guys, you might as well go with Kevin McGonigal or JJ Weatherholt and just save yourself 8 rounds worth of picks. What do you think?
I tend to agree with that right now. I did take, I think, 2 shares of Connor Griffin. One of them at the exact same pick, 140. At the time, he had, had the 3 home runs and was still looking like he had an inside track on starting the season with the team. That might not be the case anymore. So I would not want to pay a similar price. But at this point, so many people got Connor Griffin at much later rounds than this. So I don't know. My FOMO share is enough for me. I don't think I would want to continue to acquire Connor Griffin shares right now. Weatherholt and McGonigal do seem like better values at this point.
Uncle Ted saying, why not start 9 starters, jump everyone in strikeouts and wins, then chase saves at the deadline? Because at the point of drafting, every single person thinks they have a shot at the overall, which is not going to be the case, of course. We'll learn very quickly that there are certain teams that are DOA because of injuries or underperforming. But on draft day, everybody wants at least a shot at the overall. And if you don't have at least one closer, at least a path to saves in the first half of the year, unless you get every single save guy and just go 9 relievers the second half of the year. But again, we're talking about real extremes there. I would prefer to just take a couple, go 7-2 or maybe 6-3 on certain weeks, Dan. Any thought to drafting in an overall type of contest and simply just not going for the overall? Have you ever done that? Drafted a DC or drafted an OC where there is an overall, but you just say, I'm just trying to win the league and forget about the overall component early on?
Not during the draft.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah. The overall, the reason we play is to have that shot at, in the OC, it's $150,000 grand prize. The main event, it's $200,000. I mean, that's the dream. Yeah. Is the money, of course, but also just to be able to say, I won an overall against some of the best players that are out there. So with that in mind, and with so much of your entry fee into the league going towards the overall prize pot, it just makes more sense financially to at least try to give yourself a chance to compete for the overall. Even if you're not able to get first place, obviously that's the huge money, but just to cash in that overall, which I believe in the OC will be the top 36 out of thousands of teams. It's an accomplishment. It feels great, but it also pays you some extra cash. So you get some of that entry fee back in your ROI.
Yeah, I think, Ted, if you want to try that strategy, if you want to start 9 starters and forget about saves, I mentioned earlier the standalone leagues, which they've changed the names of them over the years. They were called, I think, satellite leagues, and then they were called cash leagues. They've changed the names of them, but $150 entry fee. There's some of them that are $250, and there's no overall. All of the money will stay in the league. I tried them out for the first time last year. I played 2 of them. I won one of them, and I came 3rd in the other. And you don't have to, you can kind of punt categories if you want to, because that's more of a traditional way to play fantasy. There's 1 category you don't like, or 2 maybe if you're feeling a little frisky and you want to punt 2 categories. You can't really do that in the overall, but you can do that in a standalone league, or if you're in a home league, a head-to-head format really works. If you want to punt, saves or batting average or steals, you can do it. But to Dan's point, like you play in this type of league, you enter in with such a high entry fee because you want a chance at winning that huge grand prize, and a big chunk of that $350 entry fee will go to pay out the overall, to your other point as well. I am coming up here, so I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe going another pitcher, but I probably don't need to. I've gone 3 of the last 4 picks have been pitchers.
Kind of going back to those extreme builds, any strategy can work if you draft the right players. But the more extreme a build is, whether it's pitching heavy, like 9 straight starters, whether it's hitting heavy, your margin for error when you switch to the other side is just so much lower. The margin for error is so much higher if you have taken on an extreme build. So it really puts that pressure on that you have identified the perfect players, the big breakouts, that you're not drafting duds when you're drafting starting players who are going to have to be playing every single day in your lineup. And you don't need to win a category by 100 if it's strikeouts, by 30 or 40 if it's home runs. You don't get more points in your league standings because you won by a lot in that category. Ideally, you win categories by just a little small buffer, and you can be competitive or win, very close races in almost every other category.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you don't get extra points for destroying your opponent in the category. You just need to sneak out a win. Oh, I should have taken Horton. Why did I tried to get cute. I thought Cade Horton would still be there, but he is a helium guy in spring with the increased velocity.
Yeah, that 10 strikeouts in 5 innings, that game he just had, drew a lot of attention to him on Twitter. A lot of posts about it, a lot of posts talking about the upside that he has this year. And Horton himself has mentioned that he knew he was on limited pitch counts last year, so he really was trying to pound the zone and play to contact and get through as many innings as he could in those limited amount of pitches. So this year, we can probably expect to see that strikeout rate tick up. maybe closer to, where he was in the minor leagues, getting 10, 11 strikeouts per nine. Probably won't get there in the majors, but he could definitely get closer to a strikeout per inning. But that also puts in play that he can have a higher whip for this year as well. He could walk more batters. Well, how do you feel about Tatsuya Imai? You took him. You must have at least some positive opinion on him.
Yeah, I did a show in Arizona last year where Eno Saris was talking him up, really like top 25 starting pitcher, first days in the majors type of praise. And then yesterday I was talking with Eric Samalski, who also I believe is a really, really sharp pitching mind. I think he's one of the sharper pitching minds out there. And he's into Imai as well. He likes the arsenal. I mean, if you look back over his early years in the NPB, they were pretty miserable, 2018 through 2021. Wasn't getting a lot of strikeouts, bad command, but every year since we've gotten ERA in the mid twos or even sub 2 in 2025. The command seems to be improving. It was a 7% walk rate, best ever strikeout rate of his career last year with a 0.89 whip. You never know how it's going to translate, but the last few guys who have come over outside, I guess Roki Sasaki you have to factor in as well, but Kodai Senga, Shota Imanaga, the recent guys who have come over from Japan have been pretty successful. And I think that Imai in a good pitching development organization can definitely make it work. And I think he's my 5th starting pitcher. Is he my 4th or 5th? No, he's my 4th.
He's 4th. Yeah.
But I think the price is right for a guy that some of the guys that I trust the most who talk about pitching are super into him. And it's one where I have a little bit of blind faith because I don't watch the NPB. I'll be the first to say it. I don't follow them throughout the course of their time there. I listen to people who debate them after the fact, once they get posted and once they get signed, go through the data myself. But when a lot of sharp people are interested on him and the price is not really flying up, like sometimes Eno or somebody or James Anderson will plant their flag on a player and then that's 50 picks up. It might still seems reasonably priced here in the 14th round, though.
Now, your pick before Imai, Brenton Doyle from Colorado, a player that I believe I did take in the Beat Red Fox Roto draft last week, a favorite target of mine in the outfield.
Not somebody that I've landed on a ton this year, but the power speed mix that he brings you, I think is those are the types of players that I like to target. The guys who I don't think are going to kill your batting average necessarily. It might not be a huge boon, but if he's where he's projected around 250, then I'm fine with it. But the guys who can be 20-20, he's got a good home park, and especially buying in off of a decreased price after a poor year that was due, I think in large part, and we mentioned this on the last stream, that there was a lot going on in his personal life that was completely not baseball related. And a lot of the time we'll look at these players as just names on a spreadsheet and we forget, there's stuff that's going on off the field that can really impact them. And I think that was the case with Brenton Doyle last year. He's a guy who is still just 27 years old. I think he's healthy. I don't see any problems with his health profile. He's a guy who has played at least 126 games in all 3 of his seasons, and that first year was his rookie year. I think that we are going to get a bounce back that could end up looking something similar to 2024. Maybe it's a 25-25 season. If he does that again, I'll be laughing at that ADP.
Yes, I'm in full agreement that we are likely to see a really nice bounce back season from Doyle because in spite of the personal tragedy that he dealt with, the underlying metrics matched or in some cases exceeded what he accomplished in 2024. So I am excited to see how he rebounds this year.
Yeah, I'm just going through the chat to see if we might have missed anything. J-Dot asking about in a Yahoo head-to-head 5-category league, which is my home league setup, daily lineups, 5 moves weekly. Do you typically allocate more bench spots to pitchers or to hitters, or does it depend on roster construction? In a daily league, I tend to have my bench filled with pitchers. I don't want to be deciding every single day between 3 different bats for my utility spot. I'd rather just let them get the start. If you want to have 1 or 2 bats on the bench to use as a platoon, then I'm there for it. But I've seen roster constructions in my home league and other leagues where somebody has 5 or 6 bats on their bench, and then every single day they're flipping coins to decide if they should be playing two shortstops, 2 outfielders, 2 utility bats. I would much rather put that roster spot towards a pitcher in a daily roster format because your starting pitchers, even if they're Paul Skeens, Scooble, whoever, they're useless for 6 out of 7 days most weeks. And if you can switch them out for other guys, whether it's streaming or off your bench, I think that is the way to go about it. Dan, do you play in any daily moves leagues? My only one left is my home league. I couldn't possibly do more than one daily moves league, but are you playing in any of those formats?
I do share a head-to-head league with a friend from back in Chicago that does offer daily moves. I It's hard for me basing everything around the NFBC week and kind of building towards fab on one day. It's hard for me to really stay in tune to, if I read a piece of news, oh, I have to act on that, or at least look at that league and see if, that player could be useful to me. So it's kind of difficult to manage that mindset where you're playing both weekly and daily together. So I really do try to limit it. I just have the one league at this point, and it's quite enough for me. I love the NFBC format, and having fab just once a week where you can really build towards just that one time, setting yourself up for the next week. It's kind of more aligned with, I think, the fantasy football mindset where it's kind of week by week. So it does kind of help flow those two seasons together. So I like that a little bit better than daily.
That's how I'm able to play in 15, 20 leagues a year. If they were all daily, there's no shot. There would be no chance of keeping up every single day. You would miss out on things, but having to set your lineups Monday, you set your weekend hitters on Friday, and then you do fab on Sunday, and it ends up being manageable. You still got to spend a lot of time going through the player pool, finding out who are going to be the guys getting called up, depending on your format. Obviously, NFBC, you can't add minor leaguers, but you always have to be aware of so many different things that if you have to also set your lineups on a daily basis, it gets really tricky. It really does. I got a couple positions that I have neglected to some extent that I need to take care of here, and I'm hoping that there is no chicanery that goes on over these next few picks. I'm thinking I'll be okay on at least one of them, but the other one I am not 100% certain if he's going to fall to me. But let's see. We got a couple picks now. We are into the 15th round, about ending the 15th round. Team 12, which didn't take any pitchers through the first 8 rounds, ended up going Cam Schlittler, Emmett Sheehan, Michael King, Cade Horton, and Chris Bubich. I kind of like it. I think that it's a good stable of starters, but still without a closer, Dan. I know that you cover closers, you cover bullpen, so it might be a little bit easier for you. For the average fantasy player, getting to almost pick 200 without a closer, it feels a little bit concerning to me, even in a fab league.
Yes, but there are some good ones left. There are some targets that I like, and I would be very comfortable taking at this point in the draft. We'll see if he does that here in the 15th, 16th round turn. Now, you took Kazuma Okamoto, so you took care of third base there.
Yeah, third was slipping away a little bit. It was getting a little dark on me. And I think Okamoto's skills translate pretty well. Like, I think, he's not going to steal for you. That's a category you're going to forget about. Maybe he gets one steal, but really good power hitter. Every year in Japan, it's been 30, if not 40 home runs. Last year in only 69 games, he gave you 15 homers. I think there's a lot of upside. And I get the guy that I wanted to fall back to me as my first base target. I think I'm going to take him. I'm going to just double check one thing, but I think I am going to take him.
Yeah, this is a point in the draft where I have about 3 first basemen that I've got grouped together, and typically where I am targeting even my starting first baseman. So there are 2 options remaining to you that I would be very comfortable with. We'll see if you do target one of those guys.
This guy is 20 picks past his ADP is the guy I'm about to take here, and it's Sal Stewart.
Very nice. Yes, Wilson, Contreras, and Stewart are part of that group of 3, where this is about the point in the draft where I really do like to take one of them. Stewart has, tremendous upside, and one of the reasons is he has some sneaky speed for a first baseman, maybe especially now after losing weight in the offseason, trying to help his flexibility, his mobility to play at first base and play in the infield. But Stewart has stolen at least 4 bases here in spring training. I don't know if he's added any since I last saw, but he could be one of those, 20, 25 homers and maybe even get that, 6 to 10 stolen bases.
Yeah, I got aggregate projection going on here between the bad X, a bunch of them. Sal Stewart got him down for a 264 average, 18 homers, and 7 stolen bases. I will take that, especially, with the quote unquote punt at first, kind of like what you did with Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras is always a target for me. He went 4 picks or 3 picks before my 15th round selection, so I missed out there. But Okamoto and Stewart, I realize that there is a floor that we probably don't even really realize with either of them. Between the two of them, there's like 7 major league games under their belt. But I think that there is a decent enough floor, even with potential downside, that I should be able to make it work. And I do plan on backing them up with some other with a couple of corner infield targets here over the next couple rounds. But I also need to take another couple pitchers, so we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, so Team 12, we've kind of been talking about that build with all those hitters early and then getting a pretty solid core of 5 starting pitchers. They did address the closer position on that turn with Griffin Jax from Tampa and Brian Abreu from Houston. Jax is someone that I have been warming up to lately. The skills are not in question. It's really just what is his share of that save situation going to amount to. And, Kevin Cash has said during the offseason that Jax and Edwin Uceta and the left-handed Garrett Clevenger would be part of that mix. And with Uceta having, a little uncertainty dealing with a shoulder issue, maybe not fully at 100% at the start of the year, I do think Jax has that opportunity to earn a substantial portion of that save share. And just getting that opportunity to start out, probably getting, maybe 3/4 of the save chances. Could he become the new Pete Fairbanks where Kevin Cash really feels comfortable with him and just reserves him for the 9th inning and says, okay, I like this guy here. I want to keep him in the 9th. It is possible. And with Brian Abreu, Josh Hader is dealing with, his own shoulder injury at the end of last year, wasn't treated in any way surgically or repaired. Now he's got the biceps inflammation. He's dealing with that. He's in his 30s now, multiple injuries. Yeah. We don't know how healthy he'll be able to be when he comes back. So Abreu has been a dominant setup man, filled in capably for Hader for the final few months last year. So Jackson Abreu, combining them, some big upside between those two and some solid picks for that extreme build for Team 12.
I like it. I think it works. Like, if you told me I could punt saves altogether and end up with Jackson Abreu, I think I'd be feeling pretty happy about it. I mean, I know I took some early closers here, but you built, our Team 12 built a really solid offensive base. Julio, Tatis, James Wood, Machado, Naylor, Merrill, Suarez, Horner. Argue about the individual names if you want to quibble with them, you being the viewer, but that strategy of going with a lot of the hitters early on, then going for a lot of pitching, as we've mentioned a couple times now, it doesn't need to be a linear build. You don't need to build the way that everybody else builds their team. As long as you have 14 hitters and 9 pitchers, it does end up working out. And yes, sorry about not scrolling down the big board. Apologies. Got a lot going on here, Marcus, so I do apologize, but we got the board moved down now. I think I need to hammer a couple of pitchers over the next couple of rounds here. I've pretty good base, I think, with my starters, with Crochet, with Glasnow, with Gray, and with Imai, but I think I need a little more stability. There's a couple of guys that I am looking at here. At this point of the draft, Dan, do you more or less just forget about ADP? Once you get around pick 200, is it still something that you're checking and referencing as you go throughout the last few rounds of your draft?
No, not at all.
No.
ADP has its uses and it does matter. It's a way to, kind of see about where you need to take your favorite players, the guys you really want to get on your team. But once you've built out that foundation of players, you're really just kind of picking your spots. What stats do I want to focus on now? Where can I get them from? What positions do I still need? And what players give me what I want from that position specifically? So, you might identify like, oh, there's a second baseman I like and I need power. He provides both. If you can get that in one player, you don't have to try to wait around ADP. Just take him, get him on your team if he fits your build and he's a player that you like. I start doing that maybe earlier than some people are comfortable with, but definitely at this point in the draft, it's something I would be more than willing to do. Get a guy I want, get a guy like regardless of ADP.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. As a rough guide, I think it still has its uses. Like, I don't need to take a guy right now around pick 200 if I think I can get him around pick 300, but it is get your guys season. If you want to jump a guy a couple rounds because you think that he is going to work out, then I'm not going to hold you back or give you the gears just because the ADP is a few rounds later. This time of year, it really is just building the teams that you want to build. And I'm attempting to do that here in round 17, looking at a few pitching targets after I think a pretty solid offensive base that I've built here. I need to start rounding the pitching into form. And we got a couple names that I am targeting. But before my pick comes up, guys, just remember at the bottom of the screen, ftnfantasy.com. You use promo code Joe, J-O-E, not Joe Adele, J-O-E, and you can get 10% off of your fantasy baseball subscription at FTN. So make sure you guys are doing that today. If you've been waiting for a chance to jump in, there you have one, 10% off. Go do that today. Ivan Herrera goes off the board in round 17. That's one of the problems, not maybe not a problem, but taking early catcher does take me out of the running for Ivan Herrera. And a guy that I really, really do like this year. And at least Garcia goes off the board too. Another player that I really like, Rangers Suarez earlier in the round, who I was at least hemming and hawing about. I know the Rangers' advanced numbers aren't great, but they're never great, and he seems to always just get the job done. So I feel like eventually the other shoe is going to drop for him, but he probably has another good year or two. Does Ranger going to Boston give you any pause going to that ballpark, Dan, considering especially some of the rather mediocre supporting metrics he has?
The ballpark, no. What is a little concerning is that he has not been a whip asset, really, other than that half-season rookie year he had. And he doesn't offset that with a really high strikeout rate either. So he's kind of a mid option. The ratios, he's managed to keep maintain a very good ERA, and I believe we can expect that to continue moving forward. But that's really the only positive contribution he has typically made to your team.
I feel like I'm going to get sniped here, but let's see. Am I likely to? Actually, no, I don't think I am here.
I do like the pick of Aaron Nola. And if I could go back to my draft, I would have not taken Joe Musgrove and probably taken Nola over him instead. So I'm definitely on board with Nola. We have seen his velocity, back into that like 92 and a half range. Which is where he was at in some of his more successful recent seasons. So I like the chance for Nola to provide his usual high volume and continue to, have that kind of every other year, good ratio season.
It's really bizarre that he's done it for so long at this point, and I guess it's the right year to buy in on him. Last year he did miss time, but if memory serves, it was like a broken rib or something like that. It wasn't anything arm related. So I know that he has been a guy that you're looking at the ledger and it's 180, 200 innings every year. Last year was 94, but it's not like his shoulder was bothering him or he had elbow soreness. So I think we can bounce back to close to where the projections have him, 160 to 180 type of innings. Good team could lead to maybe not 14 wins again like he had in 2024, but if I get double-digit wins out of him with his usual even year ratios, I'll be pretty happy with that as my 5. And then I continue to add on to my most rostered player of the year, and I took another share of Max Muncy.
Yeah, that was a good add to, continue to fortify that corner infield position with 3 out of 4 picks at the corner. And then just to add a guy that gives you a lot of home runs and gets you a cheap share of that Dodger offense.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's not great for the batting average, but my batting average projected before I add Muncy to the spreadsheet is 254. I add him in, it goes to 252. And while I don't love that, it's not the end of the world. And that's what the Muncy projected at 221. And once he had the vision corrected last year, he was quite a bit better than 221. Maybe I'm read too much into that. And there is also injury risk at his age. There might be some extra days off added in there. But I think he's a potential, like you said, a cheap source, a cheap piece of the Dodgers lineup that has the potential for 30 home runs, and maybe 100 RBI could come his way as well. And with Okamoto, a guy that I like and trust, but at the end of the day, we never know with a guy who has yet to set foot on a major league field. I did want to back him up sooner rather than later with that pick.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
What else do we need to target specifically? I mean, I have the closers taken care of. I have the catchers. Roster-wise, I need a middle infielder, a utility, an outfielder, and 2 starting pitchers. I can't forget about that 5th outfielder, although there are a couple of decent options here. There's still a bunch of outfielders. This is the beauty of going over from 15 teamers to 12 teamers. Is it just feels like the teams are stacked. It's you're into the 200 plus pick range, and you're still feeling pretty good. I'm still feeling pretty good about some of the names on the board to go along with the guys that I've taken. Whereas in the 15 teamer at this point, I still have a lot of roster spots to fill out, and I still like a lot of names, but things are starting to dry up a little bit here. Dan, I want to ask you about Blake Snell, though. It's pick 215, and Blake Snell is still on the board. I don't know if I want to take Snell to go along with Glass now, but this feels like the type of range where somebody should probably take a chance on him pretty soon, no?
You would think so. Just for that upside alone. We've seen him have absolutely dominant half seasons. Yeah. So if what you're kind of expecting from him at this point is, maybe you only get 4 to 5 months, and might not be great coming out of the gate where he doesn't really have much of a spring training, much of a buildup. But if he can close the season healthy and put up ridiculous numbers like he has done so many times in his career, at this point in the draft, you need the roster spot to hold him. Definitely you need to take that into consideration, but the upside is high, if you can keep him as your only stash and still use your 6 bench spots wisely besides holding on to him. So a good risk for team 1 to take at this point.
I'm going to see if I can get my dream middle infield target. And even saying that, I know there's probably one person out there who's like, I know who he's talking about. I'm going to take him. But let's hope not here. I'm targeting a player who doesn't have really much speed. But I think at this point of the draft, I've built a lot better base of speed than I typically do. I have 3 guys that I'm projecting for 30-plus steals in Abrams, Carroll, and Marcy. Doyle projected at 21, Springer at 13, Sal Stewart will chip in, Marte will chip in a handful. I don't know that I need to go aggressively for more speed. Now, from what I'm looking at, the 90th percentile in the OC for steals was 195. Pretty lofty number. I project myself at 151. So I probably need at least one more guy that I can get some speed out of, but that's a high total. According to what I'm looking at, the 90th percentiles for homers and stolen bases were 328 homers and 195 stolen bases. Are those numbers, whether it's 80th, 90th, Dan, do you keep those in your mind when you're drafting? Do you have a sheet open with those targets and try and meet them by the end of the draft if you can?
Yes. I mean, you want to try and get as close to those, category percentiles as you can get. But we also have to remember while we're drafting that when we're inputting projections are, median outcomes. They're 50th percentile outcomes.
Yeah.
A team of 50th percentile outcome projections really should have a difficult time getting 90th percentile, on your total numbers. So it's not a bad thing at all to come up short in a few categories.
Am I going to be able to do this? I think I am going to be able to do this, and I think I want to do this, but
I think that you're downplaying Brenton Doyle's stolen base upside a little bit, having him at 21. There has been some kind of positive chatter out of Colorado that under Warren Schaefer, they really want to use their speed on the bases more and be more aggressive, stealing bases. So, you could see Doyle get back to that 30 steal range where he was 2 years ago. You could see some solid totals from some other guys in that lineup, a couple that haven't been drafted yet that I won't mention yet. But there might be upside to Doyle, that the projection is not accounting for.
That's fair. That might be a little too conservative. putting him at 21. Yeah, I could see him like 25. Maybe it should be a better number for him. I have him for 19 homers, 21 steals, 71 runs, 68 ribbies, and a 250 batting average. Maybe a little more conservative than it needs to be. But maybe last year's getting factored in, and the missed time and the poor surface stats potentially are bringing him down a little bit. I wanted Jorge Polanco to fall to me. That's the guy I was talking about earlier. One of my favorite picks of the year, and also a guy that I could have used as a backup first baseman in season. You know, if I worry about Sal Stewart, not that I'm super worried about Sal Stewart, but like I mentioned, he's got like a week in the big, so you never know. Polanco's going to pick up first base, and I was hoping to fall back on that, but I'm going to go a different route here, and I'm going to take a player that I haven't yet taken in draft season. If he falls, which has not been a given to this point in the draft, I think what we'll do is we'll keep it the same as yours, Dan, and we'll probably go through the starting rounds, and then I'll take the reserves off stream. Really appreciate everybody who's tuning into the stream. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments below. You guys know the drill. Do all that stuff. Help support the channel and the stream. We would very much appreciate it. And if you're watching on Twitter, hop over to YouTube and help us out with a couple of those things that are very easy, free ways to help out the channel and help out FTN if you are able to. One pick away. I'm thinking I might get my guy here. I don't know for sure.
As we wait on that, I did mention that in Colorado there were some guys I thought had some nice stolen base upside, and one of them just went, the very versatile Willie Castro. So he's someone who, aided by the BABIP inflating Colorado, could be a really nice kind of bench piece, or someone you can just kind of rotate around a starting role at the outfield, the infield, middle infield position. So I think he's a very interesting player for fantasy, where there's some pretty nice upside in that thin air for him. Now, you took Kevin McGonigal. I was going to say earlier, we finally did see J.J. Weatherholt, and now McGonigal to your team. 7 rounds after Connor Griffin was taken, where we had previously said, yeah, we probably prefer the value on Weatherholt and McGonigal at this point.
Yeah, I do. I prefer to just wait and take McGonigal or Weatherholt. But I was really hoping that Ryan Nelson would also be there for me. Ryan Nelson become one of my favorite pitchers over the last couple of seasons. I really like the fastball. The results last year were phenomenal. And I just think he's going too late, 19th round for a guy. I think he's the best pitcher the Diamondbacks have, best starting pitcher, but hell, probably the best pitcher that they have on the staff at this point. So I was hoping that he would fall back to me. It did not happen. There's a couple of guys that I think I should be looking at here for starters. There's one in particular. He might be hanging around. No, he probably won't hang around for another round. I should take him here. Yeah, let's do it. Mike Burrows, come on down.
Oh, very good. Very good. For someone like Burrows kind of getting out of Pittsburgh and getting that opportunity in Houston, who, that's a franchise we've typically seen as very good for pitching development. Burrows has looked really good so far in the spring. So I like that pick.
I appreciate it. I like him a lot. I don't know why. I guess the Pirates felt that their pitching was deep enough that they could move on, but really talented. Last year it was a 16%, better than 16% strikeout minus walk rate. Pretty solid command, 42% hard hit rate you can definitely live with. The stuff is pretty solid, at least manageable, good locations. I'm not in love with him, but I think at this point of the draft, there is plenty of upside. And to this point in spring, don't want to read too much into it, but he's striking out 30% of batters. The walks are a little bit up, but he is not allowed to run through his 12 2/3 spring innings. So I'll take it. Especially if he can. I don't need a 30% strikeout rate. I'm not greedy. Give me 27, 28, and keep that walk rate below 10%. And I'll be happy. Although 28%, I'm probably pushing my luck a little bit with my expectations. But I think that there is room to grow. And I mentioned earlier, I like how the Astros pitching development goes about things. And I'm not realizing that I've actually got a few of these little pairings throughout the draft. My Diamondbacks to start. Do I have a couple of Blue Jays? No, just the one. No, I got Springer and Okamoto.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of little pairings here. Sonny Gray and Garrett Crochet. So it's like a little duos that I'm going to be cheering for throughout the league.
Tatsuya Imai and Mike Burrows, both in Houston together too.
Yeah, it's unintentional. It doesn't happen that way on purpose, but we'll take it. I'll take the team so far. I'm liking the build, which of course I hope that I'm liking my build to this point. It's my team, but it's not always a given. Sometimes you get to a 20th round of a draft, or at least I do sometimes, and I'm thinking I've messed up somewhere. I've taken a pick I didn't like, and I had to compensate for it. Do you find, Dan, at the end of all your drafts that you tend to like them, or do you ever look back at a team, even the night you drafted it, and think I really messed it up?
I've had some of those drafts. The one that really sticks out in my mind, I had a queue of 9 players in like round 10. Literally all 9 went in the 9 picks ahead of me. So I was just scrambling for a pick. It completely threw me off. Drafts like that are just going to happen. But for me, when we get to the middle of March like this, I've really honed in on the players I like. And I have enough drafts between NFBC, and I do a lot of best balls on fan tracks. I've drafted enough that I feel comfortable, putting a team together. So it's really not too much of a concern to me to get a little out of my comfort zone, because I know I can get back to finding the players I want. And at the end of the draft, typically I've taken guys that are on my list. I haven't panicked and taken a whole bunch of players that I'm just not that interested in. So I typically do like my drafts at the end, because I have my targets and I can usually get them.
I generally do every now and then. There's a draft that I just, for one reason or another, just not loving it. I get sniped on a couple of picks, and then I just end up making a couple of mistakes. I did the FSGA draft with Vlad the other night. It was a 40-second clock, and there's a couple of picks that I made that I was kind of regretting after the fact, just because I didn't have quite as much time to think about it. You don't think it's that much time that it would matter so much, just 20 seconds. But I did a mock draft a few weeks ago on Fantasy Pros where we did a 10-second clock just to see how it would feel with, you got no time to think. It's just all about reactions. And I did not like it. I like to have my time to think about it. I don't really like slow drafts. Like when I have 4 hours to think about it, then I end up overthinking things, and I hate when people time out and take too long. I end up getting cranky. But I don't know what the right happy medium is. Maybe a half an hour for a pick, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm not sure what exactly it is. Is there a preferred format for you in terms of draft clock, Dan? Do you like slow drafts? Do you like the quick moving ones, the express DCs? Like what's your preferred time on the clock? I know everybody wants more time, but after a certain amount of time, you're overthinking things. So is it 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, an hour? What would be your ideal if you were setting up a league? How long would you set the pick timer for?
I love these drafts, specifically the online championship. 12 teams, 1 minute per pick. Even if you're on the end, like you're at 11, I picked from 12 last week. You're not waiting an extremely long time for the pick to come back to you, but you still have enough time to, look through your queue, to organize it, to look at your roster, see where your strengths and weaknesses are, figure out, who you want to target next, and put that list together. And I feel very comfortable specifically with this format. I really like the 1 minute, 12 team drafts.
They are fun, and they go pretty quickly too. 15 teamers, sometimes you can be in it for close to 3 hours, but we've been at it for an hour and a half, and this draft is already on the back 9 at this point, literally like the back 9 rounds. Very, very poor joke, but I have only a couple of starting spots left to fill, and I think I'll make my 24th round selection, and then I think that will probably be it for us. But just a reminder, if you guys haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments. What did you like about the draft? What do you dislike? Do you like my team? Let me know. I will not be offended if you do not like the team. Comment down below. What would you have done differently? Maybe picks that you would have made that were different than mine, teams that you like, all of that. Let us know down below. And I think, I've taken a lot of pitchers. I only have 1 starting pitcher slot left. I have 2 hitting slots left that I think I'll go 1 and 1 here. That's kind of the way I like to go about things on the end, whether I'm picking 10th, 11th, 12th. I take 1 pitcher and 1 hitter with those 2 picks. You can't do that every single time, but by and large, that tends to be what I do in a lot of these rooms. And I still need that 1 outfielder. I have a decent target. I think I know who I want, but maybe he's not enough power. Laureano was definitely a consideration, and Frelick was the guy I was thinking about there. So there goes Frelick.
All right. Well, we'll give you a moment to kind of gather your thoughts here. We'll go back to Team 12 just quickly, and it really is an interesting way to build a team. I haven't seen one quite this extreme yet in the NFBC draft season, but we've seen this kind of thing before. But since adding Griffin Jacks and Brian Abreu as two closers, added Jack Flaherty and Andrew Painter. So kind of a solid, high volume, high strikeout guy in Flaherty, who could be pretty volatile on the ratios. And Painter, exciting rookie. Don't know what you're going to get, but there's definitely upside there. But I like that pick of Robert Garcia as their third closer. Having waited until the 15th round to take even their first option for saves, having Jackson Abreu, the big upside there, that's kind of reliant on the health of other pitchers. Garcia's a little bit in the same boat. He's kind of competing with Chris Martin, who is officially diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome. So between the two of them, I think Garcia will be the majority saves earner to start the season. So I think where he's going so late in drafts that he is a pretty solid option as even a closer too. But for Team 12, a really nice kind of 2.5 for that team.
I'll go TJ Friedl to round out my outfield. I don't think that there's a massive upside, but he was 18 and 27 a couple years ago. He'll give you that power speed mix, won't hurt your batting average. And he's going to lead off most likely for a team in a really good ballpark. And it's a really good lineup too. I've been landing on TJ Friedl a lot as that fifth outfielder, even potentially a bench outfielder if the format's shallow enough. Do you think that there is a chance that TJ Friedl is a really viable pick in this range? I don't know if he's going to be 18 and 27 again, but if he's 15 and 17 or something like that at the top of that order, I think he pays off here.
Yeah, probably. One of the stats that can be difficult to come by late is runs. At Friedl, as a leadoff hitter in a good offensive ballpark with some nice power behind him, he could score 80, even 90 runs if he has kind of a nice season for him personally. So I do like the pick there. And Cade Cavalli, going back to the draft that I had, I said, if I'd known about Joe Musgrove at the time, I wouldn't have taken Shane Bieber and ended up having two stashes. It's Cade Cavalli that I would have taken instead of Bieber. So I do like that Cavalli pick there. He's looked good in the spring. He's getting a lot of whiffs and strikeouts. Obviously, the team context is not great, but every pitcher you take at this point is going to have some kind of flaw. Cavalli is finally healthy and has that chance to, kind of live up to some of that prospect promise that we saw a number of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the ground ball rates are great. The swinging strike rates last year were solid considering like the layoff that he had. And I think people remember the 18% strikeout rate, but he was a 12% swinging strike rate. He gets chases. The contact he allows is not crazy. 83% zone contact against. I think that we're looking at maybe not an ace. That's probably asking for a bit too much, but I think he can be the pitcher that was promised a few years ago. He was a top prospect in baseball, or maybe not the top prospect, but among the top prospects. And I think the injury has kind of wiped him out of people's consciousness. And I don't know that he is held in as high regard as he probably should be. He checks a lot of boxes, the ground balls, the strikeout potential, the fact that there's going to be no real babying of him at this point. I don't expect anyway. They don't have anybody else to baby him with. That rotation is brutal. I expect Cade Cavalli will make 30 starts, and maybe I'm expecting a little bit too much, but he's, I think, my most rostered pitcher this year. I've really liked the price and the skill set.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, this is a 12-team league with an overall contest. So this is a point in the draft where, you want to really try to focus on upside with most of your picks, if not every pick, because a lot of the players being drafted in this range, past pick 250, not a large percentage of them are going to last the entire season on someone's roster. So, take some big swings, try to hit some homers, try to get a grand slam. One of those guys who can give you like top 5 round value out of the bottom of the draft. This really isn't the kind of contest or league where you want to really play it safe as you build out your final starters and start looking at your bench. You really want to shoot for some big upside.
Yeah, there's definitely I'm not going to say any names because that really bit me in the rear end early in the draft potentially. I'm not sure if anybody actually heard or if it was a coincidence, but there are a couple of names here that do have in my head, I'm thinking top 150 overall player type of upside, if not even maybe a little bit better if things work out for them. He's not a guy that I'm going to take here, so I'll happily say his name. Josh Lowe. I mean, I'm not really super in on Josh Lowe, but if he happens to stay healthy, the skill set is there for Josh Lowe to return a top 50 overall value. We've seen it in the past from him. So that's more to your overall point that even, beyond pick 250, Ryan Bloomfield does this great thread on Twitter every year where he talks about one player outside of the top 180 picks returns first round value. And it's happened every year going back to 2015 or 16.
Yeah, 2015, every year.
Every year. So there will be diamonds in the rough. It's just a matter of identifying them. And part of it's luck, part of it is skill in the evaluation process. But take those upside shots because you might end up with this year's Geraldo Perdomo, or maybe it's this George Springer of this year, or the Brian Wu of this year, or the Aroldis Chapman of this year. There are still a lot of really, really nice potential picks you can make. And there are a couple that are piquing my interest a little bit here that I'm going to target as we will be rounding out this live stream over the next few minutes. I want to say again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Really appreciate the chatter in the comments section. And as a little thank you from us to you, if you guys want to sign up for FTN Fantasy, you can use promo code Joe, J-O-E, for 10% off at ftnfantasy.com. If you're looking to sign up to read Vlad Sedler's Fab articles, you're looking to get Dan's work, Mike Mager's work, my work, Lucas Beery, Adam Young, FSWA Writer of the Year a couple of years ago, Adam Young, I should say. There's a lot of goodness going on at FTN, so make sure you guys are staying in the loop and signing up today with that promo code. Gleyber Torres was somebody I was thinking about there. Oh, man. And you know what? I think they are listening. Because the second I said Josh Lowe, he went right off the board.
Yeah, you never know who's listening. But, Gleyber Torres, I was just talking this long rant about drafting upside. Gleyber Torres wouldn't really seem to have that upside anymore. He's not hitting 38 homers again. But at this point in the draft, you're getting an more or less every single day player in a home ballpark that people would be surprised. Detroit played as a hitter's park last year. It was even positive for home runs, where it's generally been considered a really nice pitcher's park. Not really the case lately. Torres might be hitting third in that lineup. So that's actually a really nice value play with maybe limited upside, but a very useful player at this point in the draft.
Yeah, that's the thing. Mixing in the upside, you need, I want to take McGonigal and Weatherholt and all these exciting guys, but then you also need to mix in the Brian Reynolds of the world and the Ian Happs of the world and the guys with maybe a little bit better floor, the boring types. Whenever you look at the winning teams, whether it's the main event, the online championship's a little bit different because it's a 12-teamer, but the draft champions format, if you look at the first 23 rounds or first 30 rounds of those drafts, there's not like 6 rookies getting taken by the guys who end up winning those big contests. Typically, they'll take their shots throughout the draft, but it's not just upside pick after upside pick. You do need some floor. And Gleyber Torres is a guy, the old saying, you could write his numbers down in pen before the year starts. You pretty much can. He was great in the first half last year. I know that he fell off a little bit, but I believe he was dealing with an injury down the stretch. So he's probably not that 130 WRC plus we saw in the first half, but if he's even like a league average bat at this point, then you'll probably take it. If he's like a 102, 103 WRC plus, hitting third in that lineup. And then you mentioned the parks playing better. I believe when Riley Green, I don't know if it was Riley Green's first year or second year, but they moved the walls in at Comerica a little bit. So that probably contributed to the way the park has played a little bit over the last couple of seasons. Justin Crawford was in my queue here as one of those kind of shoot for the moon upside guys. But he will not be coming to me at this point. Unfortunately, I got one utility spot left in my lineup, and then the rest will be reserves. There's 2 guys that I really want to take here with these next 2 picks.
Well, let's see if you can get them. But yeah, kind of going back to, what I was talking about, really putting a focus on the upside for players drafted at this point. That doesn't mean that we should ignore, those players who do have a pretty high safe floor. So a player like Gleyber Torres is a really nice addition if you mix them in with some of those, high upside lottery tickets. And, Justin Crawford is one of those guys. Also, Luis Angel Acuna. I really like Acuna at this point in the draft. If you're a little light on speed, Acuna is a good upside option who qualifies at second base, but is most likely to be the starting center fielder for the White Sox. So he could get that middle infield, outfield eligibility early in the season and have a lot of speed upside.
I took Matt Shaw, and I get that there is some downside potential here, but Seiya's banged up. There will be other injuries that pop up throughout the season. I think that he's going to end up playing more than people are probably expecting. And he's a guy who was a top 150, 170 pick before the Bregman signing. Getting him close to pick 300 here, I think it is worth it with the power speed mix that he has. He's not a great from like a hard hit perspective, but I think he can give you that power speed mix if he does end up playing. Maybe Seiya is banged up to start the year, and there will be other injuries. So what do you think about taking a shot on Matt Shaw with this kind of lower price than we've seen for a lot of draft season?
I like that one. Right now we know that Seiya Suzuki has the PCL. I can't remember if they were specific about it being a strain or a sprain. But either way, he might be a little limited early on. And if they stick him at DH, Matt Shaw has been building his versatility, playing in the outfield this spring. And, he will definitely have the chance, I think, to fill in some for Suzuki in right field. He can give Bregman a breather every once and again at third base. He can play second. He can play a lot of different positions and kind of quietly maybe accumulate those 3 to 4 starts a week. And then he can be that guy who can be the backup at multiple spots if there is an injury. So I do like the upside for someone like Matt Shaw at this point.
Not my favorite pick, but we'll take it. I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. I took Zebby Matthews. Not my favorite pick in terms of his current situation. I'm not sure if 100% he'll start the year in the rotation, but the stuff was so good last year. It was 5 pitches that had a plus stuff rating, or a plus stuff plus rating, I guess I should say. Good strikeout rate, good command. I don't know how much I trust the guys that are going to be ahead of him right now, especially Taj Bradley, Simeon Woods Richardson, Mick Abel. I don't know how safe those guys are. I think that Zebby feels like a good buyback after a very bad first season. Dan, last question I'll ask you. What do you think about Zebby Matthews? Is he worth buying into even if he doesn't potentially make the opening day roster?
Yes. Matthews, I mean, you were citing some of the statistics. He's got the pieces there to have a really nice season. He can strike out batters without walking many. K- walk is one of the simplest stats we have, but it's also one of the most informative. So I think that is a good selection. It's upside at a point where you need it.
Yeah, first bench pick. If we hear that they have no intention of bringing him up or something, he might end up getting cut at some point. But this is where you take the shots, as we mentioned several times throughout the draft. You can take shots in an OC more liberally than you would in other rooms, but especially once we get to the reserve rounds. Guys, that's it. That'll do it for us. I'm not sure if there is another live stream that we have due up. I think we've done most, if not all, of the beat OCs at this point, but make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel. We will have more fantasy content throughout the season. Make sure you like the video, drop your comment below, do all that stuff, and make sure you're following Dan over on Twitter at RedFoxRoto. Dan, we spent about 4 hours together over the last week. It's been a lot of fun drafting these teams, man.
Yeah. This has been a great time. This is, being able to draft my own team in this format was fun. And then just, coming on, talking baseball, watching a draft, hearing someone else's perspective as they kind of go through the paces round by round. This is really informative and very, very interesting to see it all happen live. So this has been a cool experience. I hope to get to do it again next year during draft season. And, just looking forward now to having this all play out. Now we got to actually manage these teams, not just admire them.
We get to the point where it's the first Sunday and we're like, I have to do fab for how many teams? How many drafts did I do this year? Exactly 13. No, that's what we're going to
Too many.
Too many. But it's been a blast, my friend, getting to meet you and getting to talk over the last week or so. Thank you to Kevin Hastings, who joined us last time, and thank you to Frank Stampfl, who took the time tonight to join and do some pick commentary. But guys, that will do it. I'm going to draft the reserve rounds with a cold beverage in my hand that I will not show on stream, but that will do it for us. For Dan Thompson, I'm Joe Orrico. We'll talk to you next time right here on FTN Fantasy.